Hello, everybody, and welcome to Riftbound Ramblings. I'm your host, Barrett, and today we are still playing catch up. But today we're going to be talking about the Calm domain. And I'll be honest, guys, as I was going through all these cards, I was already a fan of the Yasuo demo deck or trial deck. This Calm alternate rune looks incredibly beautiful. But after looking at these cards, I think this might be my domain. I think this might be the one I want to be playing, and I am excited to show you why. So without further ado, let's get started. First off, we've got Charm, which is a 1 energy, 1 power spell that just says move an enemy unit. And I think this is pretty good. Obviously, this is an RE spell, but and like meant to be synergistic with her. But as we kind of get into this domain and figuring out what it's good at and what it's not good at, it's very good at, I'm going to call them tricks. And the idea here is that this lets you take a battlefield for free as long as your opponents aren't like loading a ton of units onto battlegrounds, and you can just shove it right back to their base, which is really good, which is why I think it costs the 1 power. And what we're going to notice here for a lot of these impactful cards in this domain is that they are going to cost a power in recycling one of your runes back to your rune deck. So obviously I think this card is giving me a lot more edge and reason to like cards like the champion unit Ari that we know about so far, because we don't know the mind one yet. But my biggest gripe about this champion unit, when I talked about it in a video prior, is that it only had 4 might for a 5-drop. But I'm learning that this domain is very good at holding battlefields once you get in there, and cards like Charm let you basically get in there when you need to. And so I'm gonna give Charm a diamond rating. I would honestly give it higher, but you'll see this as a trend as we get further in. I don't have. It's really hard for me to give anything higher than a diamond rating for a lot of these spells because a lot of them are gonna cost power on them, and that's going to be really difficult, I think, for this domain. But diamond rating, I still think it's very good. I think people are going to play it. Moving on, we've got the Clockwork Keeper, which is a 2 energy, 2 might unit for Shurima. And as you play me, you may pay a power as an additional cost, and if you do, draw. So, one, draw is not very prevalent as far as I can see, unless you're in the Calm domain. But I like this one a lot because it's conditional. Or sorry, it's optional. You don't have to do it. So I think like when you do have a seal out, it's really nice to play this and get an extra draw for a body. When you don't have a seal out, you don't have to do it. And so because it's optional, I'm going to give it higher rating than I did the last card. Grandmaster, not quite Challenger, but I'm going to give it the Grandmaster because it's a unit, it's low costing, you can play them early, but if you have the gears to help you pay for these powers without actually recycling your runes, cards like this go a long, long way. Moving on, we've got Defy, which if you're a fan of Legends of Runeterra, of course this art looks very familiar, and the effect is going to look quite familiar, as it is a 1 energy, 1 power spell. As a reaction, you can play it any time. Counter a spell that costs no more than 4 energy and no more than 1 power. I also love the flavor text. It says no. Real quick for the rating, I did give it Challenger. I think if you've played Legends of Runeterra, you know that when this card exists for Ionia decks, it's very, very good. I think that's going to be the case for this game. This one only costs 1 energy and a power, which you just, recycle the one that you tapped, obviously. And as I've stated before, there's going to be a lot of power costs here on these really high impact cards, and I do think that this is a meaningful one, especially early on in the game. So, of course, counterspell or limited counterspell feels really good. On Guard is a 1 energy cost spell That's as a reaction, so you can play anytime you want, and you give a friendly unit 1 might this turn, then an additional 1 might this turn if it's the only unit you control here. So this is kind of going back to like the charm thing. Once you get onto a battlefield with a unit, it's pretty easy to just keep it there, but this domain really wants you to only hold on to places with 1 unit. I'm not as big on this card, even though it doesn't cost a power. So, but I'm still gonna give it a diamond rating because I think it's good enough, right? I don't think it'll be good in the long run. I think it'll be good right away. I am liking this kind of like sneak peek though for what Fiora might be doing when she eventually comes out, of like wanting to hold a battlefield by herself and then getting benefits if she's the only one there. And there are going to be more cards that I think support this trend and this gameplay idea for Calm. So that's why I'm giving it a diamond. I would normally give it. I would honestly probably give it lower. I don't actually think this card is going to be very good, but I think this has potential. Moving on, we've got Meditation, and for Meditation, it's a 2 energy spell, and you can play it whenever you want as a reaction. And as an additional cost to play this, you may exhaust a friendly unit, and if you do, draw 2. Otherwise, draw 1. So from what we learned for the unit beforehand, it's 2 energy for a 2 might body, but you have to recycle a rune to draw 1. This says tap a unit that's already been on the board, and this, I do think this domain is pretty good at keeping your units on the board. I think this, I went too far. I think this card's a challenger card. The fact that this can draw 2 for the same cost as that unit, even though it's not a body, but worst case scenario, it just replaces itself. I think this card's going to be great. I think this is going to actually probably just be the go-to draw card for Calm, and there's going to be a good reason for you to play Calm. Moving on, we got Stand United, which is a 3 energy spell. It has Hidden, and it's only has an action, but you buff a friendly unit when you basically trigger the Hidden ability. But you can also play it on your own turn if you'd like. And then buffs give an additional 1 might to friendly units this turn. I wasn't going to rate this card very high. I'll just, spoilers, I wasn't going to. But then, I got to thinking. Barrett, you already think that Lee Sin isn't going to be very good. And I would agree with that. I don't think Lee Sin's going to be very good. But this card makes me think Lee Sin might actually be pretty good. And then to top it off, it got me thinking a little further. The other card I thought was really good for Lee Sin was obviously the Lee Sin champion unit. And then I really got to thinking, this is how I think Calm, because you can play this in your deck without having to play Lee Sin as your legend. This is how Calm is going to hold on to battlefields. They're going to play a Lee Sin. They're going to wait a turn. They're going to go put it on a battlefield. It has shield, so it's actually 6 might. You can buff it, 7 might. It can have any number of buffs, so it'll scale as the game goes. Oh, and then we have cards like Stand United, which will buff it again, and then all of the buffs that it had basically count as 2. So this is not, for a card like Lee Sin, this is not plus 1 more might. This is 2 times the number of might on there. I think this card has some potential. I think Stand United, in synergies with these buff decks, specifically like Lee Sin's, because like Set can't play this, but I do think it has potential. I didn't quite give it Challenger, but I think there's a world where I can be convinced that decks that use this sort of kind of combination with other buff effects can be quite good. I think hidden cards have the potential to be quite good. So I'm going to go ahead and give this quite a higher rating than some other stuff. I'm going to give it Grandmaster. Moving on, we got the Wielder of Water, which, again, if you're a fan of Legends of Runeterra, 3 energy, 2 might, Ionian unit. While I'm attacking or defending alone, I have plus 2 might. So, again, fits into that synergy of wanting to defend or attack alone. This helps. It gets itself onto a battlefield a little bit better. 3 might for 4. Or, sorry, 4 might for 3 energy. Pretty good. At least curve-wise. So I think this one's going to be quite good. I'm going to give it Diamond. I don't think it's going to be like the reason to play Calm, but I think it's going to be good enough to put into your deck for a good 3 energy cost card. Moving on, we got Discipline, which is a 2 energy spell. You can play it as any time as a reaction, and this is give a unit +2 might this turn, draw a card. And as we've already stated, 2 energy, draw 1 card is like the minimum, and this one also helps you defend things and attack things. I think it's gonna be good. I don't know if all of these that I think are gonna that I say are gonna be good, like the spell that says you can draw 2, but if you tap a guy, or the unit that says if you recycle a rune, you can get one or get a card. But the fact that this also gives might and draws a card as a little quick from your hand, anything that replaces itself, I think is gonna be pretty good. So this I'm giving a challenger rating, but I might be wrong. Moving on, we got Spirit's Refuge. 2 energy and 1 power for a gear that says when you play this, you buff a friendly unit. So, more buffs. And friendly buffed units have deflect if they didn't already. And deflect, I think, is quite strong because it says your opponents must pay a power to choose those units with a spell or ability. I'm still so torn. It's I think I can't justify the same way that I did for Stand United that I can for this one. Now, this one's a gear, so once you get it on the board, it's there for good. That's really nice. But it still requires you to get the buffs out. This buff's one of them. That's really good. But then you have to have the units out. So playing the gear early doesn't really feel really good. I just don't know how I feel about this one. I'm still going to give it a diamond rating, though, because I think somewhere along the line, we're going to figure out what this buff deck in Calm is going to really look like, and cards like this one are what are going to make it really, really good. Again, showing us a lot of, in the future, what Shen might be doing as a legend, and I think I'm very excited for when that happens, because I think a lot of these cards are going to make me even more excited. Moving on, we've got Wind Wall for 3 energy and 2 power. So you've got to recycle 2 of your runes back to your rune deck. As a reaction, you can play this whenever, and it says counter a spell. Any spell. So I think right away this card won't be very good. I don't think there's going to be a lot of spells that cost more than 4 for Defy to handle. I'm still going to give it a challenger rating, though, because I think the more and more that the game goes, more sets that we get, this will matter a lot more, even with the 2 power cost. It just seems to be an identity for the domain that there's a lot of power costing here, but I think a lot of the energy costs for these cards are not very high, so you're at least still being able to play the cards that you want to, even if you have to recycle your runes back. So I think this is still going to be good enough. Moving on, we have Zonia's Hourglass, which is a 2 energy gear that can be played hidden. And it says the next time a friendly unit would die, kill this instead, recall that unit exhausted. Which is, when you recall it, you send it back to your base. It doesn't count as moving. So, obviously it's a hidden card. So you can put it down at a battlefield as long as you control it. And you can flip this over. But it's also just a 2 energy gear. So you can, I think you could just play this for 2 in your base, and it still does the effect that you want it to do, which is when eventually a unit dies, you can recall it back. So I think it's just going to be good no matter what. And obviously, if you have the power to spare, if you have like a seal out, you can just pay for this for free, basically. So I think it's going to be good regardless. I don't know if it'll be like top tier competitive, but I think it's going to be good. Speaking of Seal of Focus. Every domain has one of these. We already talked about the Fury one in a previous video. I, of course, already believe that these cards are going to be Challenger. I gave a little side tangent in the last video. I'm not going to bother here, but I think especially for this domain, these are going to be super important, and you will be playing a max quantity of them in your deck because there is a ton of powerful cards that have a power cost on them. You need these to afford those. This is going to be very important. Moving on, we've got the White Flame Protector for 8 energy and 2 power. It is an 8 might Mount Targon Dragon unit that says when you play me, give a unit 8 might this turn. Now you can't play this at like instant speed or anything. You can only play it on your turn. But giving something 8 might is, in my opinion, from what I understand the game is going to look like, giving something 8 might is essentially saying I'm winning a battlefield. So for 8 energy, you get an 8 might body for later, and a 2 power, of course. And right now, as long as I have another unit for me to take a battlefield, I'm going to take a battlefield. I think that's good enough, but I'm still only going to give it a gold rating. I'm just not sure if this is actually going to be worth it for how much the Calm Domain decks are going to be recycling their runes back into their deck. That getting to 8 is actually going to be quite difficult, and even then, this requires you to have other units on the field that you want to be doing this with. So I don't actually know if this one's going to be, and this might be the lowest rating I'll give one of these like legendary tier or rarity cards. Yeah, but yeah, there is dragon support as well. So like this card I think can be a lot better, but I'm gonna tentatively give this just a gold rating because I'm a little worried about what it's gonna look like. Moving on, we've got Block, which by the way, shout outs to Kelly Digues. She is the narrative designer for Riftbound, or one of them at least, and she had this revealed today at the time of recording. So, got to put this into the video right at the end, of course. For 2 energy, you have a spell for block, and it can be played hidden, so you can put it down, or on your own turn. And it says, give a unit shield 3 and tank this turn, which gives it 3 more might while it's defending. Sorry, your turn or in showdowns, I should specify. And then it must be assigned combat damage first, which is what tank does. So this is really cool because obviously in Riftbound you don't actually declare blockers or anything. When people attack onto a battlefield that you have units on, eventually after the showdown stuff happens, you assign damage and the attacker gets to assign how they want to do it, or assign their might, essentially. And playing a card like Block before that step happens, which is when the showdowns happen, obviously, means you really, really mess with your opponent's math. And so I think this is going to actually be quite good at defending your battlefields that you've taken over, even with only 1 unit on there, especially because it gains tank and shield. So I think a card like this is going to be good. How good, I don't know. I think people are going to figure out which of these kind of defensive combat tricks are going to be the best, and that's going to be the ones that are ending up in the block or in the decks a lot. And I do think block is a contender for that, but I did give it a diamond rating just to be safe because I wasn't too sure. But it's going to be good. And then moving on, I think for our last one today, once again we have the Calm Caitlyn Champion unit, and I'm going to shout out once again Frank Scarin, who is a game designer for Riftbound. Spoiled this Caitlyn today on his X account, and she says she's a 3 energy, 1 power, 3 might Caitlyn Piltover champion unit that says I must be assigned combat damage last. So like the opposite of tank. And she says you can exhaust her, deal damage equal to my might to a unit at a battlefield. Use this ability only while I'm at a battlefield, which I think thematically is so freaking cool, guys. I think the fact that she's a sniper in the battlefield is awesome. I think that's so cool, and this exactly does that by pinging something with her might. For only 3 energy, and almost every champion unit costs a power or more. I think the trick obviously is getting her more might, which is really good for like the buff stuff that we've already seen, or with that 8 drop that we just saw on the dragon. And I'm a little partial, I'm a little biased. So I actually gave Caitlyn a challenger rating because I think she's going to be quite good just in general. I like this because it gives us a little sneak peek of what Caitlyn the Legend might be doing. But I think this is such a cool unit. I think it is so thematic, and I think it will be quite good. Because this is exactly what you want, right? This is a kind of unit that you want to be on a battlefield. She doesn't have to be defending alone. Heck, she's better when she's not. And then to top it off, she helps you get other battlefields by pinging once she's on to one, basically. So I gave her a challenge rating. But that's going to sum it up for today. We got through and caught up all the calm cards that have been revealed so far. And so if you like this video, go ahead and comment, subscribe, and keep a lookout for when we keep on going and keep on trucking through the rest of the domains. So we're going to see you all next time.